Have you ever been sitting in a room full of your closest friends, laughing, talking, maybe there's music playing in the background?
Yeah, just a totally normal Friday night.
Right, exactly. But suddenly you are struck by this unshakable sense that you just don't quite belong.
Like you're almost an outsider looking in.
Yes, like you're a temporary guest in your own social circle. There's this invisible wall between you and the group.
Mm-hmm.
And even though you're physically there, like you were invited, you're sitting on the couch, the pizza's hot, the jokes are flying internally, you just feel like a ghost.
It's an incredibly isolating feeling. And, I think a lot of us have been there.
Oh, totally. It is a wildly disorienting experience to feel like deeply lonely while surrounded by people who actively like you.
Right. And the most frustrating part for people who experience this phenomenon is the internal gaslighting that usually follows.
Oh, man, yeah. You start blaming yourself.
Exactly. Because when you look at it from the outside, it just presents as simple shyness or maybe introversion.
Right.
So people brush it off. They tell themselves they're just, having an off day, or they assume they just lack that natural social charisma that everyone else seems to have.
Like, why can't I just be chill like everyone else?
Exactly. But the architecture behind that invisible wall is so much more complex than just being a bit quiet at a party.
Which is exactly our mission for today's deep dive.
Woohoo.
We are digging into some absolutely fascinating psychological research to figure out, why we feel like these insider-outsiders.
It's such a great topic.
It really is. We've pulled excerpts from this super compelling piece called The Architecture of Inner Isolation,
Great paper.
alongside another really heavily researched source titled The Psychology of the Insider-Outsider, Decoding Social Attachment.
Both of these really dig into the mechanics of this.
They really do, and I want to give everyone the big reveal right at the top so you can sort of reframe how you think about yourself while we unpack all of this.
I love that. Set the stage.
Right. So this feeling is not simple shyness. It's not because you are unlikable or like fundamentally flawed.
No, not at all.
It is actually a highly sophisticated protective mechanism that your brain developed a really long time ago.
Yeah, to truly understand how that invisible wall operates today, we have to look at the foundation it was built upon.
We have to rewind the tape a bit.
Exactly. We can't just analyze your behavior at a Friday night dinner. We need to look at how the human brain first learns to process relationships and attachments.
Which fundamentally takes us back to early childhood, right?
Right, early childhood and early adolescence.
Yeah.
The neurological wiring for how we perceive our social value is laid down incredibly early in life.
And the sources spent a lot of time on this origin story, specifically introducing this concept of a replaceable mindset.
Yes, the replaceable mindset. This is crucial.
In reading The Architecture of Inner Isolation, I was really struck by how they framed this, because it wasn't described as a personality trait.
No, it's a cognitive bias.
Right, a cognitive bias. It's basically a distorted lens through which you view every single interpersonal dynamic.
Yeah, think about it like this. If you grew up in an environment where your emotional needs were routinely ignored.
Or maybe, like, your achievements were constantly compared to others.
Exactly, like a sibling who was always the smart one, or classmates who were always just a bit better than you.
Right.
Your brain draws a very specific conclusion about your worth based on that data.
And the conclusion is basically that your position in any group is entirely conditional, right?
Yes. You internalize the idea that your presence is tolerated rather than required.
Tolerated, not required. Wow, that is heavy.
It is. Because, the brain's primary job is survival. And part of social survival for a developing child is securing attachment.
Right, you need your caregivers, you need your group.
Exactly. So if that attachment feels tenuous, if you are made to feel that you're only loved when you're quiet or only valued when you achieve something, the brain categorizes your social standing as completely precarious.
You learn that you are, in essence, replaceable.
Precisely. And here is where the neurology actually comes into play. Once that belief forms, it physically alters how your amygdala processes social cues.
And the amygdala is like the brain's threat detection center, right?
You're right. It's scanning for danger. And it doesn't just magically reset when you turn 18 and move out of your parents' house.
No, it follows you straight into adulthood.
Absolutely.
The sources mention how this really solidifies during the teenage years, which, that makes total sense. Middle school and high school are already just a complete minefield of social hierarchy.
Oh, it's brutal.
It is. So if you enter those years already believing you are a second-tier friend, You view every single interaction through this filter of impending loss.
You start constantly predicting that the people you care about are going to realize they can do better.
You're just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Exactly. You assume your friends will eventually find someone, more exciting,
Yeah.
someone easier to deal with.
Someone who doesn't require as much effort.
Right. Because your brain is already bracing for the relationship to end, it creates this self-protective distance.
Ah, so that's the invisible wall starting to build.
Exactly. The tragedy of the replaceable mindset is that you never fully lean into the connection, because leaning in requires vulnerability.
And vulnerability is a massive risk if you believe you're about to be dropped anyway.
Exactly. You're keeping one foot out the door.
Because your brain is convinced they are going to push you out. This ties directly into what the psychology of the insider-outsider calls rejection sensitivity and social vigilance.
Yes, social vigilance is such an important concept here.
I found this part so fascinating because it explains the sheer exhaustion of socializing. If you feel replaceable, your brain goes on extreme high alert.
Right. You aren't just hanging out.
No, you are actively running a threat assessment algorithm in the background, constantly.
The term social vigilance is just incredibly accurate for this. If you grew up feeling like a second choice, your brain had to adapt by becoming a masterful reader of the room.
Like hyper-aware of everything.
Yes. It analyzes tone of voice, slight pauses in conversation, tiny shifts in body language.
Or like the specific way someone texts back, like if they use a period instead of an exclamation mark.
Exactly. The hypervigilant brain notices distance before anyone even consciously admits that the distance is there.
Because it's trained to find it.
Right. This happens because the brain learned early on that rejection doesn't always come with, a dramatic fight.
Right. People don't usually stand up at a party and announce, like, I'm going to replace you now.
No, they rarely do.
They just sort of drift. They take a little longer to text back. They make plans without you. The abandonment happens really quietly.
And because the threat is quiet, the brain decides it simply cannot trust the surface level of any interaction.
It operates under the assumption that hidden threats are everywhere.
Yes. So you stay on high alert, scanning for subtle signs that you don't belong, even when you are actively included in the group.
Right. You could be sitting right in the center of the room. People are laughing at your jokes. But your amygdala is working overtime.
Looking for a microexpression that proves you are secretly unwanted.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. Because thinking about that level of constant background vigilance,
That's a lot.
it is. It's like living with a smoke detector that's been cranked up to maximum sensitivity because there was a massive fire a long time ago.
That's a really good way to put it.
Right. And now it's going off just because someone burned a piece of toast in the kitchen. But the alarm is so loud you can't even enjoy the dinner party.
Taking that smoke detector analogy a step further, consider the immense metabolic cost of running that system.
Oh, right. Like the actual brain energy.
Exactly. The human brain consumes a massive amount of our daily energy anyway. So running a constant background program, analyzing every micro threat, it is physically exhausting.
It drains your batteries so fast.
It really does. That sheer drain on your mental energy bridges the gap between those childhood origins and how our brains actually short circuit in real-time social settings today.
Right, which takes us into the actual mechanics of this. The sources dive heavily into cognitive load theory here.
Yes, cognitive load theory is key to understanding this.
Because the physical reality of a social gathering is essentially a massive data dump, isn't it?
Oh, completely.
We're talking about, multiple conversations happening at once, people moving around, the music in the background, changes in vocal pitch.
And the sources refer to individuals with this insider-outsider dynamic as having high sensory processing sensitivity.
Right, meaning they naturally take in vastly more of these details than the average person.
Exactly. The average person filters out the majority of that social noise. They just focus on the conversation in front of them.
But the highly sensitive, hypervigilant person catches everything.
Everything. They see the slight eye roll someone tries to hide. They notice the exact moment the energy in a group dynamic shifts because someone's tone dropped half an octave.
Which sounds like a superpower, but it's actually exhausting.
It's completely overwhelming, and this is where cognitive load theory becomes crucial. Working memory only has so many slots available to process information at any given second.
Which means if you are utilizing 90% of your cognitive slots to process the hidden emotional shifts of 5 different people across the room.
You have almost no processing power left to actually participate in the conversation happening right in front of you.
Wow. Yeah, there is an anecdote in the research about a young professional at a weekend corporate retreat that perfectly illustrated this.
Oh, the bonfire story.
Yes, exactly. She described sitting at a bonfire with her team. Everyone was relaxed, drinking, having a great time.
Sounds super chill.
Right. But she was mentally tracking who was making eye contact with the boss, who seemed secretly annoyed by the music, and noticing that a coworker had subtly shifted their chair away from her.
Her cognitive load was maxed out.
Completely. She was so overloaded by the data that when someone asked her a direct question, she completely froze.
And that freezing response is literally the system crashing.
Like a computer blue screening.
Exactly. The sensory overload forces a psychological detachment. To protect itself from overwhelming data, the brain just steps back.
It pulls the plug.
Yeah, you go from being an active participant in the hangout to becoming an observer.
And this transition is what creates that invisible wall.
Yes, you feel too aware of everything happening, so you detach to lower the cognitive load. But that detachment makes you feel entirely disconnected from the joy of the gathering.
You're just watching it happen instead of being in it. And what makes it infinitely worse is that you aren't just observing everyone else.
Right, the high self-monitoring.
Exactly.
Right.
The sources highlight this as being even more draining. You are hyper-aware of yourself, too. You have this completely divided attention.
Yes, you are scrutinizing every word that comes out of your mouth.
Adjusting your tone in real time.
And constantly wondering what your face is doing.
Like, am I smiling the right amount? Do I look engaged?
Exactly. A significant portion of your remaining cognitive processing power is tied up in analyzing whether you are performing your role correctly.
It's an internal audit that never ends.
No, it doesn't. You cannot be truly present with your friends because you're too busy managing the optics of your own existence in that space.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. It's exactly like playing a multiplayer video game.
Okay, I like this.
But instead of actually looking at the world, enjoying the scenery, and, playing the mission with your friends,
You're staring at the UI.
yes, you spend the entire time staring at your own health bar and stats in the corner of the screen, terrified you're going to die because you missed a status effect.
That is a perfect analogy.
Of course you feel detached. You aren't even looking at the game.
And the behavioral consequence of staring at that internal health bar is profound.
Because it changes how you act.
Exactly. When you are overwhelmed by sensory data and terrified of making a misstep that will lead to rejection, your behavior inevitably changes. You shift from trying to connect to trying to protect.
Right. You stop playing the game and just try to survive the level.
You withdraw. You become quieter. You might just smile and nod rather than sharing a controversial opinion.
You just agree with whatever the group wants to do.
Yes. And the paradox here is striking. You are executing all of these defensive maneuvers to protect yourself from being rejected or feeling like an outsider.
But by altering your behavior, flattening your personality, and withdrawing into observation,
You end up engineering the exact isolation you fear.
we accidentally build the very wall we are complaining about.
It's tragic, really.
It is. And that brings us to the behavioral fallout of all this processing and self-monitoring. Let's look at the specific coping mechanisms we developed to handle this.
Right. How we actually behave in these groups.
One of the major concepts discussed in the research is this preference for depth over social rituals.
Yes. The sources argue that introspective minds find normative group banter mentally draining.
Because it is. Small talk is hard.
Well, normative social rituals require a specific type of performative energy. For the hypervigilant mind that is already nearing cognitive overload, engaging in surface-level banter feels like an impossible task.
You just don't have the bandwidth.
Exactly. The brain is wired to seek meaning, deep connection, and safety. So a person might sit in a group and stay totally quiet.
Right.
And the research initially presents this as a preference, that these individuals don't lack things to say, but rather their brains simply prefer depth over social noise, which leads them to detach from casual group setting.
Okay, wait, let's look at this closely for a second, because this is where I actually want to push back on the sources a bit.
Oh, okay, let's hear it.
They frame this preference for depth almost like a badge of honor for the highly sensitive person, like, oh, I'm just too deep for this.
Right, the classic introvert narrative.
Exactly.
Right.
But I have to ask, is it really that we're just too deep for the conversation, or are we using that quality over ritual idea as a convenient excuse?
That's a very fair question.
Like, are we just telling ourselves, I'm too introspective for this group, to mask the fact that our fear of rejection is making us utterly terrified to engage?
You know, the psychological literature actually supports your skepticism here.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
What you are identifying is a classic defense mechanism known as intellectualization.
Intellectualization. Okay, unpack that.
We take a raw, uncomfortable emotional fear in this case, the fear of taking up space and being rejected, and we dress it up in a sophisticated intellectual rationale.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It is much easier for the ego to say, I am an introspective soul who values deep philosophical connection, than it is to admit, I am absolutely terrified to chime in right now because I think nobody cares what I have to say.
Yes. Oh my gosh, we're telling ourselves a flattering story to cover up our own survival mechanics.
Exactly. It's a way to feel in control of the isolation.
That makes so much sense. And the sources touch on this when they discuss survival independence and the guarded psyche.
Yes, the guarded psyche. This is another major behavioral fallout.
Because if you grew up in a situation where support wasn't guaranteed, where asking for help led to disappointment, anger, or being mocked.
You learn very quickly to hide your needs.
Right. You learn the rule of the guarded psyche. Relying on others is fundamentally dangerous.
You don't want to risk being perceived as a burden. Because in your foundational blueprint, being a burden means losing your place in the group.
You become replaceable again.
Exactly. So you aggressively manage your image to be as low maintenance as possible. You become fiercely independent. You are always the listener, never the speaker.
This is the classic therapist-friend dynamic.
Yes, perfectly said.
You sit on the couch, you listen to everyone else's problems, you offer great advice, but you never actually share what is going wrong in your own life.
Because that would be taking up too much space.
Right. You project this aura of, I'm totally fine, don't worry about me, I don't need anything.
And tying that back to your point about intellectualizing fear sometimes, staying quiet during group banter isn't because you are seeking profound depth.
Sometimes you're just hiding.
Yes. Sometimes you stay quiet because entering the flow of conversation requires asserting your presence. It requires taking up space and demanding attention.
And your brain hates that.
Right. If your survival mechanism is constantly whispering, stay small, stay quiet, don't be a burden, you will inherently avoid jumping into the banter. But to avoid feeling like a coward, your brain rationalizes the withdrawal.
That is a brilliant synthesis. We disguise our fear of being a burden as a preference for depth.
We do. It's a very clever trick the brain plays.
But the fallout of this is what the researchers called the cruel irony of the insider-outsider dynamic.
Yes, the cruel irony.
Because by trying to stay easy to keep, you accidentally make yourself incredibly easy to overlook.
It is the ultimate backfire of the protective mechanism.
It really is.
If you never share your struggles, if you never ask for a favor, if you never assert a strong dissenting opinion, people simply do not know how to connect with you.
You're just a blank slate.
You present a completely smooth surface. There is nothing for them to grip onto. They might genuinely like you, and they probably enjoy having you around.
But they can't feel deeply close to you.
Right. Humans bond through mutual vulnerability and shared friction. If you remove all friction to protect yourself, you remove the bonding agent.
Which means the group inevitably engages more deeply with the people who do take up space.
Exactly.
The messy friends, the ones who ask for help, the ones who loudly state their opinions.
The ones who are actually playing the game, not just staring at their stats.
Right. And then the hypervigilant person sees that happening, their rejection radar goes off, and they think, see? I knew it. They don't really care about me. I'm an outsider.
A completely self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's a loop.
The protective mechanism that was specifically designed to keep you safe from rejection is the exact tool engineering your inner isolation. You built the wall to keep the threats out, but you ended up walling yourself in.
Man, this breakdown fundamentally changes how we should view our own social anxiety.
It really does shift the perspective.
We've traced this all the way from early childhood blueprints of conditional attachment through the sheer neurological exhaustion of sensory overload to the ways we intellectually masked our fear of taking up space.
It's a whole system.
It is. So what does this all mean? For the listener right now who is nodding along, who feels that invisible wall every single weekend, what is the actionable takeaway from these sources?
The most vital insight from both pieces of research is the need for radical self-compassion.
Self-compassion, I love that.
The feeling of being an outsider, the exhausting hypervigilance, the tendency to smooth yourself out until you are invisible,
Hmm.
these are not character flaws.
They aren't signs that you're broken.
No, they are not evidence that you are unlikable. They are highly successful, learned survival skills. Your past explains why these patterns exist,
Right.
but the crucial realization is that your past does not define your social value today.
It's basically old software running on a brand new computer.
That's exactly what it is.
The programming was useful 10, 15, 20 years ago when you needed to survive your environment, but now it's just draining the battery.
Exactly. Your amygdala is still trying to protect you from a threat that likely no longer exists.
The people you're with now aren't the people who hurt you then.
Right. The people in your current friend group, the ones who invite you over for pizza, the ones who text you to come out, they are not the people from your childhood who made you feel replaceable.
That is so important to remember.
Recognizing that the feeling of being an outsider is a trauma reflex rather than an objective truth about your current reality is incredibly empowering. It allows you to separate the feeling from the facts.
And to everyone listening out there right now, hear this loud and clear. Understanding these hidden psychological patterns is the very first step toward dismantling the wall.
It absolutely is.
You do not have to earn your place in your friend group every single time you walk into a room.
No, you don't.
You do not have to perform perfectly, you don't have to monitor your social stats, and you absolutely do not have to be the lowest maintenance person in the room just to be allowed to stay.
You're already invited. You're already there.
Exactly. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to be messy, to have needs, and to just be now.
Now, it undeniably takes practice to unlearn these habits.
Oh, for sure. It's not overnight.
The neural pathways of hypervigilance are deeply entrenched. It takes time and repeated exposure to safe environments to realize that you are secure enough to turn down the sensitivity on that smoke detector.
You have to train your brain that it's safe now.
Yes, but psychological awareness, just naming the mechanism, is where that unlearning process begins.
It really is. Bringing the invisible into the light strips it of its power.
Completely.
And we want to leave you with a final thought to really chew on after this deep dive is over.
A little homework.
Exactly. Think about this. If your brain built this invisible wall solely to protect you from the pain of rejection, what would happen if you actively chose to drop it for just 5 minutes during your next hangout?
Just 5 minutes.
Yeah. If you stopped monitoring your tone, stopped checking your internal health bar, and just spoke whatever was actually on your mind, would the catastrophic rejection you fear actually happen?
Probably not.
Or would you finally realize you've been an insider all along? Think about it. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. See you next time.